All right, lads. So it's been controversial, but we're going to talk about the war in Victoria 3. And this is a hotly debated topic, and I am going to give you a completely impartial, balanced approach to this. I'm going to talk about the pros, and I'm going to talk about the cons, and I'm also going to talk about what could be improved in future to make this system overall better. You're here to hear me slate the Victoria 3 war system? Yep, I'm going to do that. And you want to hear me praise it? I'm going to do that too. Radical centrism, feedback gaming. Here we go. What we'll do is I'll launch a game and I'll show an example of a war that goes really messy due to a few variable factors. So first of all, it is Prussia. And most people start their game as Prussia, and it isn't going to be an exception. This is the worst example of where the war system goes completely wrong. So first of all, I'm just going to research nationalism, just so I can contest the leadership of the Germans. Here's the first initial problem. Can you see it? So right now, when there are multiple combatants, particularly a lot of small nations, these are all front line, and they're all clustered together in this way that it's really hard to make out. So you could hop into military lens, you can get an idea who you're going to be fighting against. And this just make it a little bit clearer. So you can see there's Bavaria here, there's one of the smaller states on the border of France, there's France, and there's Austria. And you can see all their colonial holdings as well. It makes it easier on the military lens. However, you're not really using the military lens very frequently. So it's something that should be readily available who you fight in. It shouldn't have to go into a specific military lens. Not that I'm thankful that exists though, just to make you aware. So the first issue is this micro thing. So even if you zoom back all the way here where you reduce some of the UI, you've still got these front lines and the estimated victories of different front lines. And it's just incredibly busy. I'm thankful that diplomatic plays are very big on the map because they need to be visible and you need to see about it. But then if you zoom in, then you can get like a better idea what's actually happening. I guess in all fairness, you should be able to look at the overall view of the map and to get a better idea what's happening, not having to specifically zoom in. Austria. There we go, we're at war now. One of the other issues with this is that because there are a lot of small micronations, which I feel like is only a really big deal for Germany because of the small independent German states, that it creates loads of mini front lines. So I'm going to mobilize an army now and advance the front and look at all these front lines. So we've got one here, we've got one here, 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 here. Now, there's nothing wrong with this, but it feels strange to me that some of these front lines, for instance, why can't this Austrian front line be connected to the Krakow? Why can't this be connected to the Krakow front line? Why do they have to be individually different armies? It just makes the front lines just unbelievably busy, busier than they actually need to be, which I think is a frustrating aspect. So once again, this isn't a particularly game mechanic critique. It's kind of a UI critique. It just feels like there needs to be an easy way to actually see these front lines and a way that you can connect the front lines as well. Quite difficult to split the front lines too. You have to create individual armies to assign to specific front lines. So you'd have to put one on the Krakow front line, then one on the Austria front line individually. A second issue that I've got is it's quite difficult to actually know what HQ, what army is connected to. And you kind of have to dig into the menus to actually find it, which I think is a little bit frustrating. So right now, we know that this guy is standing by the Poland HQ. So if I build, and see this region that's highlighted here, if I build barracks inside of this region, it will potentially add battalions to this guy's army. If I promote him, more battalions would get assigned to him if there are ones that are readily waiting, which is great. However, if I put this guy, let's say, on the defensive front of France, for instance, I actually don't know what front line this guy is originally from. I don't know that this guy was originally part of the Polish front. I wouldn't know where to build barracks to add extra battalions for this specific guy. Now, this might be just a basic understanding of that I'm not really getting of the game here, but I feel like if I want to make an army bigger and add more battalions of troops, I should be able to know where to place barracks in a specific HQ region to make that army bigger. So I only know from assigning them previously that this was a part of the Poland HQ, so I would have to build, say, barracks inside of this specific region, and therefore it will make that guy's army larger. As you can see now, he's mobilizing, he's getting on the front line. I could promote him again. When you promote a general, it lets them field more battalions. You can see he's got 52 now. If I build more barracks and more troops get trained, it's sign he potentially could get more battalions. I suppose these things are just like basic UI problems. They're not actually like big critiques of the actual gameplay. They're just things that could be tweaked. And I think these are issues that could be fixed really quickly too, with like a big patch that comes out maybe a few weeks after Victoria 3 is released. So from my humble opinion here, these aren't game breaking, but it could be a lot bit better. The UI could just be a little bit more friendly. So for me, from playing the game a little bit, this doesn't seem too busy because I kind of understand what's happening. But for a new person, when you just look at this and you're like, what is happening here? It's a little bit daunting. Here's the next problem. So right now, I think this is great, by the way. This is one of the pro features, is it's really visible to see who's winning what front line. So you can see the Prussian flag is coloring inside of Austria. So it tells me that I am actually pushing in this region and I am winning, which is great. However, I can't give this guy an order, which also I'm trying to find the general to give him an order here. And I'm like, where's the general? I can see on the left here, here's the general. Here's the two generals, one here and one here. Both of them I'm telling to advance the front, which is basically advance front order. Great. The problem with it is I can only tell him to advance this entire front. I can't specifically tell him to push for like the capital of Austria. I can't tell him to push for Vienna, which kind of would make sense, right? So if my reason for going to war was to, let's say, take over Bohemia, and that was my war goal, and I get ticking war score if I control Bohemia, they're pushing southward here. And I'm like, I have no control to say, hey, bro, you're pushing towards Vienna. The war goal is Bohemia. Can you push towards Bohemia? There's no way I can tell him that. And that's important because think about it. My ticking war score is all about occupying Bohemia because that's my war goal. So there's just no way for me to say to him, bro, you're going too south here. Can you steer a little bit to the left? Look, he's pushing right here. So we're advancing here. Where's the next battle? I can't even see where this one is. This battle is up here. So this front line is so wide up here. There's a battle happening here, and now there's one happening up here where the Austrians are trying to push, and it looks like they're actually succeeding, and they're pushing me back. But now what's happened is we've got such an unbelievably wide front line. I am difficult to coordinate my orders. Do I defend this territory up here and push into here, or do I push through the main territory of Austria? I can't tell him to do that because the only order I can give him on this front line, this is representative of a front line, by the way, and these are the two armies attached to him, is attack this whole front line and look at the length of the front line. I know what you're probably thinking right now. This is probably contradictory. You just told me you need to merge front lines to make them longer, but simultaneously, this is a long front line and it's not behaving the way you want. Well, the problem is that you just can't give them a direct order what to do. It needs to be advance front to a location. So you click advance front, you select the front line, and you specifically say, can you push the front towards this specific location and then stop? That's what you need to be able to do. But you just can't do that. They push the front line sometimes in really weird orders. So let's give an example. If I wanted to take Crimea, and that would be my war goal, and I create a front line over this front line to push in, they may push north, but not actually push south towards my specific war goal, creating a weird situation where the war would go on way longer than it needs to be, even though specifically the war goal is Crimea, and the general is just fighting armies and pushing northward. I think the way it works is I think the generals are pushing towards the capital, hence the reason why the Austrian army is pushing towards Berlin here, and that's the same reason my Prussian army is pushing towards Vienna. The front line basically just says push towards the capital of that said front line. I think that's the way it's working. However, as much as I hate to say this, but you need a little bit more micro because you need to be able to specifically say where to go. Now, this is a big deal breaker for me. And when I played the original pre-release 8 months ago, no, it wasn't the leak, shush. I got offered by Paradox with a select number of content creators to play a super early release version of Victoria 3. Was like 8-9 months ago. Initially, this was my first impression. I hated that there was no battles on the map. So if I zoom in onto this front line here and look really close, there's nothing visually happening here to represent war. So there's a battle here. Let's go towards this battle. Where is it? There's a battle here. Here we go. Battle for Berlin. So we look really closely at this battle. There's nothing here to represent a battle happening. So we can see there's cannons firing here. That's the only visualness you get. So this is the Austrian army and this is the Prussian army. And they're represented by these cannons unmanned firing each other. This is the representation of an army in Victoria 3. This is the big deal for me. This is the biggest one. There are no soldier models in this game. So visually, the immersion aspect is so small. I guarantee you there's going to be a big DLC that comes up that adds actual troops to the battlefield. But my God, this so lacks immersion. I don't feel like I'm commanding an army. There's just 3 cannons versus 3 cannons. This is represented by this battle. It feels really weird and janky to me. Listen, I get that this game is a focus on economics. I get that. And I understand that the main resources of Paradox Studio was to focus primarily on the economic system. And my God, they've done a really good job. The economic system is fantastic. However, I don't feel like I'm commanding an army here. I just feel like there's 2 guys shooting shots at each other, and 2 guys look like they're having an argument here. Who are these guys? What are they even doing? It gets worse. Just to cover what I said, it's all about immersion for me. I want to feel like a march of 10,000 Prussians with artillery and muskets marching forward into Austria. But all I have is 3 cannons shooting at 3 cannons, and the city's burning, and it's just... it gets a little bit worse. So admirals. Admirals are the absolute worst. They really are the worst. And I'm going to show you why. Maybe I'm not going to get a battle in time. I don't know, because I'm really losing this war. So not only is there no soldier models, but there's also no navy models either. I'm probably not going to get a naval battle, but I'll show you what it looks like. And to be fair, I can represent that by looking at an actual land battle. So when a navy engages another navy in one of these sea zones, the little circles here, it looks like this. This is it. See this on the left here? This land battle here between 2 guys look like they're having an argument. Oh, we're going to debate philosophy. Bull, dude, this is exactly what a naval battle looks like. This is it. And the battle itself just looks exactly like this, but at sea. There's no ships firing other ships. There's no visualization to show an actual battle is happening at sea. There's nothing. And it's so underwhelming, actually, in a way, because I kind of, you spend so much time building up this big navy. You're like, oh, I've got ironclads. I feel like such a badass. I've researched ironclads and I'm building them in all my shipyards and steamers. And then the battle happens. It's just 2 dudes having an argument. Oh, it's so underwhelming. So here's the plus to this, the positive to this, is that it's really nice when wars are kind of automated like this. Once again, the game's main focus is an economic simulator, and it's really nice to have a war that's happening in your country, and you can just focus on the econ. It's really strange. The first time I was fully at war, and I was just focusing on my internal economics and focusing on building resources and whatnot, which is kind of the main pull of the game, to be fair. Because let's be real, in most Paradox games, EU4, Victoria 2, and even Hoi4 to a certain degree, when you're at war, your economics takes a sideline. You know, it becomes this second issue, you know? It's one of those things where you feel like, that won't work, it won't work, Dave. But then you actually play it and you're like, you know what? That kind of actually does work. I kind of like that. It's one of those kind of, when you get your hands on it, it makes more sense. And I'm struggling to kind of like visualize it for you guys as well. This is a big issue, this. And this is probably my biggest pet peeve. I will give a disclaimer. This might be because I'm not playing the final release version. This is just the release day, but it hasn't come out yet. Wars that happen around about 1850 onwards are insanely laggy. It's like a lag, a choppiness that happens. And I've got a decent PC, so it's surprising for me. I know it's choppy because when I'm playing normally like this, all that little war you just experienced there, it was pretty smooth and it was a nice gameplay experience. It was nice and everything just felt really good, you know, like the frame rate was high, the game speed was pretty high. But when you have those wars after 1850, they're just so stuttery. It's not necessarily a frame rate drop. It's almost like pausing to update a battle or something like that. And it becomes a really awful experience. What surprises me is that lag only you kind of experience it in 1942, 1943, 1945 in Hoi4. So it comes quite late. But for like after 1850 experience this kind of lag, it really sucks some of the enjoyment out of the game for me. Here's a suggestion for the devs. In Hoi4, you have the ability to spend command power to do force attack, last stand, staff planning, I think it was called, the one I use the most. And I think this would actually work really well in Victoria 3. So you've got authority. Wouldn't it be kind of cool to spend authority to like be able to do a last stand or a force attack or some kind of shenanigans on a specific front line to do something differently? Wouldn't that be kind of cool? And I feel like it won't deter from the initial game. The micro is still automated. However, you are actually directly, if you want to, having an actual influence on a specific battle or on a specific front line. I mean, look at this. This is the battle, guys. Check this battle out. Whoa. Ooh, shoot, pew, 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 pew. Oh, having an argument. Oh, yeah, realism, philosophy. Oh, but no, please. You know, it's just dumb. It's just dumb. It's kind of also cool that devastation is represented by the fire and stuff. So if you look on this state here, which we're fighting over. Anyway, those are my minor suggestions. For the most part, I like the way combat works. There are like loads of little things that could be tweaked and improved upon to make one a more immersive experience and just fix a lot of UI problems. I think for the most part, this actually works better than I actually expected. I just want that flavor. I want the immersion and I want to fix those UI issues. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And, oh, this video, this one here. There you go, that one. Get that video. That's the next video.